The Forbidden Door card shapes up, the Don Callis family keeps growing, and hey, we've got some new CM Punk gossip to talk about. Everyone loves that, right? Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Elite City Podcast. It's just me today, so it's going to be a bit of a shorter episode, but I just wanted to go through a few things because a lot has happened since we last recorded. The first thing is that the Forbidden Door card is really starting to shape up. Well, not really, it's kind of starting to shape up. The main event match, that's official. They announced 3 main events, the 2 tournament matches and 1 more match. The one that's official is Swerve versus Will Ospreay in the Owen Hart tournament final. We kind of assumed that would happen. I think we talked about it when the brackets were announced that was pretty certain to be the final. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It makes a lot of sense. It's going to be a good match. I'm excited for it. So we've said before, predictable doesn't necessarily mean bad. So I'm excited to have that match. Now we're not going to go into the full card or predict anything or do anything right now because first of all, the full card isn't announced. And that's also a whole other episode. I just wanted to say that it's really great that you can now say Owen Hart's name in connection with great wrestling again. It was obviously awful what happened to him, and then he was, forgotten for a long time because of the circumstances of everything. And that's not all he should be known for. He shouldn't just be known for the horrible, and the fact that he's now his name is on a tournament that sees a lot of incredible wrestling. That means a lot, as a fan of Owen Hart, as a wrestler. It's great that he's now associated with this tournament. So when you say, "Oh, Owen tournament," you think of great wrestling, and it's pretty great. Now the other Forbidden Door match, that's taking form these days is the newly announced Team MJF versus Team Mark Briscoe. I will say I find this feud a little weird. They have a history and they have had great matches together. The feud hasn't really been hitting it for me. But hey, I get it. I understand where they're going, and I mean the match will be fun. It really does seem to me, at least, that this was supposed to be a cage match just between MJF and Mark Briscoe. But I don't know if how much anyone else has seen, but MJF is going through some injury issues right now. I believe it's like a leg issue, some hyperextension or something along those lines. So they changed it to a 12-person tag, which makes sense. They can do the MJF Mark Briscoe one-on-one title match later on if that's what they want to do. Seems like that's what they want to do. I just actually hope that some of the people on these teams are from like CMLL or specifically New Japan. Because to me, at least, this Forbidden Door card doesn't feel very Forbidden Door-y to me. It feels like an AEW pay-per-view, which, I mean, AEW pay-per-views are awesome, but this one is supposed to be a little bit different from the others. Now I know, I'm not a regular New Japan viewer or anything, but I know that they're not exactly at a high point in their, star power right now. But and I know the company was just sold, so things are changing over there. But I'd like to see some more involvement from New Japan in this card, if at all possible. I know they announced a Kenny Omega Zack Sabre Jr. match, and that's cool. That'll be fun. I'm excited for that. But I will be personally pretty disappointed this just turns out to be, a conglomeration versus MJF and the Don Callis family match. I kind of hope that it's a bit more than that. Now, speaking of the Don Callis family, since we last recorded, Kevin Knight has become a member of the Don Callis family. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't know how any of the listeners feel about that. Feel free to write in the comments or send us a social media post on Elite City Pod everywhere, because this is something that I'm not sure of. I like how he's fitting in with the family. I think he has the right attitude to be in the Don Callis family. He's kind of the cocky guy who shows up and just seems like he's usurping leadership. So I like that. I like the tension that's creating in the Don Callis family, in the sense that, Andrade seems kind of annoyed that Kevin Knight is like the new shiny toy, and he's getting all the attention, and he might be getting a title shot before Andrade, who's been asking for one for a while. So I like that. But does every heel have to be associated with Don Callis? I don't know. It's working at this point. I agree, but I would like to see some heels stand on their own as well. His heel turn I thought was really good. I think he's good on the mic, so he could stand on his own in that respect. He doesn't necessarily need Don Callis for mic work. But I mean, it's working right now. I think personally, I'm just scared of like an NWO situation from the past where like everybody eventually ends up joining this one stable. So hopefully that's not what happens. And while we're talking about things from the past that scared us, CM Punk is in the news again. I'm sure that makes all the AEW fans very happy. Don't worry, there is an AEW connection to this. Not just talking for no reason. You've probably heard, but basically there were very unsubstantiated rumors that have since been shot down by basically everyone that he's unhappy in WWE and maybe considering leaving. Turns out that essentially isn't true. He's just taking a break. That's cool. It's the internet, whatever. There may be some truth to it. There may not be. We probably will never know. But this got people talking about whether or not if he left WWE, would he ever come back to AEW? That got, Sean Ross Sapp and Fightful asking, and apparently this is their quote, AEW sources gave me the never say never line when I asked if CM Punk had burned a bridge with the company. I mean, that makes sense, to be honest. With a few exceptions in wrestling, never say never seems to apply to essentially everything. No one really wants to ever say something's never going to happen unless like it's definitely never going to happen. Now, I mean, if you've listened to this podcast before, I generally like CM Punk's on-screen character. You probably also know that I've said he pretty much had to be fired when he was fired. Things had gotten really bad backstage. That relationship had to end. There was, at least at the time, there was no reasonable solution given how things had unfolded. Does that mean I believe he'll be back in AEW? Probably not. At least not to wrestle. I can't see him wrestling. I mean, he's getting older. He still does have a WWE contract, and the current AEW style of wrestling. I mean, he could hang on the microphone. He could hang as a character. The current AEW style of wrestling, I don't know how many matches he would be doing at that pace and that style, if any. He would have to be, on a limited schedule, but I don't ever see that happening. Now, could I see him showing up in like career retrospectives or anniversaries, or if AEW or ROH ever starts doing documentaries? Yeah, I could see that in the future one day. I do think that rebuilding that relationship is possible. There was an interview, I think it was Tony Khan, when he talked to Errol Hawani, and he said something along the lines, I don't know the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of, when I last talked to Punk, da 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 da. So, I mean, they have spoken. Talking could be text, could be email, whatever. But they have had some kind of communication, it seems, since Punk left the company, and I believe that, and I think that makes sense. So I think that friction is probably could be healed. Also Tony Khan's a businessman, so he understands business, and he seems to like Punk. So I could see that relationship being healed. I do also think that rebuilding the relationship with the roster is possible. I mean, that would be more difficult. There's a lot of guys who didn't get along with Punk when he was there for various reasons. My belief has always been that one of the things that caused a lot of friction backstage was Punk showing up and basically taking over the company. When he was in AEW, especially at the beginning, but the whole time, I mean, when they announced Collision, they were like, and CM Punk will be there. Like he was the main guy. Then you can say he should have been the main guy based on who he was, or his name value, or his popularity. That's a debate people could have. But I can see why that upset various people backstage. They worked hard, building AEW into a success, especially, the pandemic days. Those were probably very tough. And they worked, as a very close-knit group of people who worked really hard to grow the company. Obviously, the Elite worked very hard to turn the company into a company, because it wouldn't have happened without them. So they worked hard building it into a success, and then he walked in, and suddenly, the perception at least was that it was, his company. I'm using quotes on that, quote, his company. I mean, it's especially true when you consider that apparently, from everything I've seen, the Elite or the Bucks asked him to join them earlier on, and he basically said that he wanted the company to be more established first before he came in. I understand both sides on that. He doesn't want to sign a contract with a company that could potentially be out of business in 6 months. I get that. But I can also see why they were upset, because they're like, oh, you want us to build it into something, and then you're going to swoop in and, take over. So I understand why people were mad. But that's also part of why I think they might be able to mend this relationship one day, because AEW has proven several times, both before Punk and after Punk, that it can stand on its own as a company. It can be successful on its own with the guys who work there. I'm using guys to reference guys and girls, with the people who work there. The Bucks and Hangman, they're established TV wrestling stars. They've showed that they can, main event pay-per-views and have successful storylines and angles multiple times. So I could see them maybe being less annoyed at Punk having something to do with the company now that they've established that it is a success without him. Again, a second time. I mean, before he showed up, they established it as a success, and then AEW is doing pretty well for itself right now. They've established it a second time, so might be less of a perception that he's the guy. It's his company. I mean, obviously, especially if he wasn't wrestling and wasn't presented as the face of the company, I can all see them being together with him. It would be okay. I can see them all being okay with him having something to do with the company in some way in the future. The biggest hurdle, in my opinion, is with the fan base. Punk really split the fan base, and I'm speaking in generalities here, but AEW fans, a lot of them, are very proud of, quote unquote, their guys and their company and being an alternative and being different, and, watching these people from before the big start of AEW all the way up until now, where they're, filling stadiums. And then a lot of people see Punk as someone who not just walked in and took over, but since then, insulted their guys and their company and, what they love. And I'm saying they, but I mean, I'm obviously an AEW fan as well. To me, it's kind of like when a free agent leaves your sports team, goes to another team. There could be valid reasons for them leaving, but you're insulted that this guy chose to go to that team instead of your team. And then when that guy comes back to play in your building, he's probably going to get booed because you're, as a fan, annoyed, being like, "What do you mean you didn't choose us? You chose them." So I get that. And with all the insults and everything he said about AEW, in that brawl out press conference and everything, I don't think fans would be happy to see him back. Now, if it's several years from now, if it's in a non-wrestling role, maybe, if he was just making appearances for something, if they did, say, a 10th anniversary of Dynamite special and they had him do a little thing on that, I could see that potentially being okay. I mean, he'd get booed for sure. He can't come back as, the face of the company and the babyface guy who everyone loves. I don't think that can happen. But you never know. But this is all hypothetical because, like I said, they basically shot down all those rumors. So if he was ever going to have any association with AEW, it would probably be many, many, many years from now. So it's just fun to talk about, at least for us. Anyway, that's it for this episode. It was a bit of a shorter one, I know, but thanks for listening anyway. Be sure to follow us at Elite City Pod everywhere. Like, share, subscribe, comment wherever you listen to us. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with a more standard episode. Thanks a lot. Later.